The Driveze ground rod driver is a safer, more productive, more economical means of driving ground rods that can result in getting a better ground at each pole and lower resistance throughout the system. The driver consists of two main parts. The first part is a hammer section that weighs 20 pounds. It is made of soft steel to protect the rest of the driver. Do not use a hammer section heavier than 20 pounds. The second piece is the driver body. The lower end consists of a chuck that grips the ground rod when driving, but can slide upwards on the rod as it is driven. The upper end consists of a guide tube that the hammer section fits over. Before assembling the driver, the top of the ground rod should be marked so the position of the top of the rod is known after the top of the rod enters the top of the guide tube. Place the top of the rod next to the chuck assembly. Using a felt marker or a can of spray paint, mark the rod from the top of the chuck up about 12 inches. Another way to do this is to use a mask 14 inches long over the end of the bundle of rods when the rods arrive in the warehouse inventory and spray the bundle for a distance of 12 inches from the bottom of the mask. By doing this, the rods will always be marked when you're ready to use them. Assemble the driver by placing the hammer section, heavy end down, over the guide tube. Insert the unmarked end of the ground rod into the top of the driver. Lift the chuck off the ground and push the rod through the chuck so that it extends about 1 foot. Set the rod at the point where you wish to drive it. The Driveze ground rod drivers can be used to drive the rod at any angle. Raise the tool to a comfortable height. If the tool is too high on the rod, it can be lowered by pulling down on the small knob at the bottom of the chuck. Just raise the hammer with one hand and pull down the release knob with the other. The driver can hit with up to 150 foot-pounds per blow, hard enough to drive through thick asphalt. When the chuck is at ground level, stop hammering and slide the driver upward on the rod. Note how the Driveze tool eliminates the need to lift personnel or heavy equipment off the ground. No sledgehammers, no ladders, no bucket trucks. Places difficult to get to with most ground rod driving equipment are easily accessible with Driveze. Because Driveze hits just above ground, it eliminates all of the vibration in the rod, allowing for the use of thinner, less expensive rods. Besides being a safety hazard, a shaky ground rod disturbs the surrounding soil, resulting in a poor ground. When the top of the ground rod disappears into the top of the guide tube, watch for the mark on the rod to appear at the bottom of the chuck. Raise the chuck to the top of the mark, no higher, or it may come off the top of the rod. Drive the chuck to the ground. At this point, about 12 inches of the ground rod is above ground. To drive the rod completely underground, use a shovel to dig a hole around the rod about 15 inches deep. Drive to the bottom of the hole and remove the driver from the rod. Here are two alternatives to accomplish this. You can dig a hole before starting to drive the rod, or you can use a Driveze rod setting tool. The Driveze rod setting tool is an accessory for driving the rod below ground level. When the rod is driven until the mark on the rod is at ground level, remove the driver from the rod. Install the rod setting tool between the top of the rod and the driver. Drive until the large flange on the top of the rod setting tool is at ground level. The top of the rod is now 3 inches below the ground. It is very important that the chuck never drives into the dirt. If it is, dirt will be forced into the space between the rod and the ball holder and between the ball holder and the ball holder guides, resulting in the rod being stuck in the chuck. If this happens, pull up on the chuck while driving down on the top of the rod. This will usually happen at the end of the drive, so it will be necessary to insert a second rod into the guide tube and use it to bump the first rod through the chuck. After the rod is removed from the chuck, take the chuck apart to clean out the dirt. The chuck assembly can be taken apart by removing the C-clip from the bottom of the chuck assembly. Remove the ball holder guides and spring from the bottom of the chuck assembly. Hold the chuck and guide tube assembly in the horizontal position and remove the ball holder and balls from the chuck. Be sure you hold the chuck housing over a receptacle so the balls will not be lost. Now you can see the ball holder. There are 5 rings of holes for the balls, and each ring of balls is progressively larger. The balls fit in the holes and all of the balls touch the rod. The outside of the balls form a cone in the shape of the ball holder. This same cone is machined in the chuck body. Dirt can be washed from the parts using water. Do not use oil or grease that will leave a sticky film on the parts. A clean, dry ball holder and chuck housing will remain clean longer when in use than if it has a sticky residue when you assemble it. To assemble a chuck housing, use a plastic bag. Hold the bag around the ball holder and install the balls one row at a time. When all of the balls are in place, wrap the plastic bag around the ball holder tight enough to hold the balls in place. Insert the ball holder and bag into the chuck housing. Rotate the ball holder and pull up on the plastic bag. When the plastic bag is removed, install the spring, the ball holder guide, and the C-clip. When using the driver, lift the hammer to a comfortable height and pull the hammer down, producing a strong blow on the chuck housing. Use a cadence that is reasonable for you. Trying to drive the rod too fast will result in fatigue. A reasonable cadence of 15 to 20 blows per minute will result in a short driving time and minimum fatigue for the operator. The driver is the correct height for everyone. The operator can grip the hammer on the machine section, and even a tall operator doesn't have to worry about raising the hammer high enough to come off the top of the 39-inch guide tube. The manual driver is powerful enough to drive through very hard material. In this demonstration, the parking area is compacted by heavy trucks for many years. The many layers of crushed stone have worked into the surfaces to a depth of at least 15 inches, yet operators, tall and short, are able to achieve acceptable driving rate. If you are driving in rocky soil and hit a rock and can drive no deeper, the Driveze driver can be used to drive the rod on an angle to miss the rock, or if the rock is too large or ledge rock, the ground rod will deflect off of it. The Driveze tool can be used on galvanized rods and copper-clad rods. It can also be used on straight rods and coupled rods. The threads pass through the chuck without damage. Compression-type couplings and connectors can be installed at the end of the rods because there is no distortion at the end of the rod. Driveze has tools that work on all sizes of ground rods. 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch, and 3/4 inch also can make special sizes to order. So no matter what kind of driving you do, through asphalt, or driving on an angle in rocky soil, or just driving in grass, Driveze can help you increase safety, productivity, and improve your grounding. The following information can help you get the most benefits from your Driveze ground rod driver. When carrying the Driveze driver, always carry one piece in each hand. The hammer section weighs 20 pounds and the chuck and guide tube assembly weigh 20 pounds, so the weight is balanced. Using this method, the driver can be carried long distances over rough terrain without causing fatigue. If it is necessary to carry a ground rod with you, insert the rod into the chuck assembly. Following these procedures, the installation can be completed in one trip. Do not use a hammer section heavier than 20 pounds. Check for overhead lines. Be sure there are no underground utilities. Always use 2 hands on the hammer and hold the hammer by the machined upper section. Be sure you have good firm footing. When the Driveze tool is properly used, your grounding can be installed with fewer accidents and less expensive material, resulting in safer, faster, better grounding. Driveze! Any questions regarding the operation or the maintenance of the Driveze tool, please contact Driveze at 1-800-448-2912.